You stayed quiet while they laughed, not because you had nothing to say, but because you were watching, studying, calculating every word that fell from their mouths like ash from a dying fire. They thought silence meant surrender, but you knew better. Silence is the workshop of monsters, where the calm face is only a mask, and the storm builds beneath it. You've seen how the world reacts to quiet souls. They get labeled as weak, shy, introverted. People don't understand restraint. They only understand noise. They don't realize the loudest one in the room is usually the most afraid. But you were patient. You swallowed words sharper than blades. You hid your rage in the folds of calm, because you knew that storms don't announce their arrival. They just strike. Every insult, every whisper, every fake smile. You archived them like files in your mind. Because one day, those files would become evidence, proof of how easily the world confuses mercy for weakness. They said you were too calm, too soft, too forgiving. But what they didn't know was that forgiveness was only a delay before judgment. You watched them confuse calm for fear and patience for defeat. You let them because you wanted them comfortable. You wanted them laughing. You wanted them believing that you had no fire left. That was the mistake. Silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon with no sound. A loaded gun with no trigger noise. A chess move 3 turns ahead of the fool who thought he was winning. There's a reason wolves don't bark in the dark. They hunt. And while they mocked your quiet, you were hunting too. Hunting for timing, hunting for opportunity, hunting for your rise. Let them mistake peace for weakness. Let them believe that calm means defeat. Because when silence learns to roar, it doesn't whisper anymore. They never noticed how your eyes stopped blinking when you listened, how your breathing slowed when they lied. They never realized they were performing their own downfall. And you were the silent audience taking notes. People think explosions make power, but it's not the explosion that kills. It's the silence before it. That stillness where everyone forgets to breathe. That tension before everything breaks. That's what you became. The calm before destruction. You didn't need to argue. You didn't need to prove anything. Because truth has its own gravity. It pulls everything fake into light, eventually. So you waited. You let them dance in their noise. You let them bury themselves under the weight of their arrogance. And while they were speaking, you were building. While they mocked, you were molding. While they laughed, you were loading. Every second they wasted talking, you spent becoming. They call it silence. You call it preparation. Because when you finally move, the noise will stop. And they'll remember the one they laughed at. The one who said nothing, yet heard everything. They'll remember how it felt when your presence entered the room, and the air got heavier, when their voices stumbled, when every cruel joke suddenly aged badly in their throats. Because silence, when it evolves, becomes presence. Presence becomes pressure. And pressure becomes fear. You're not weak because you didn't fight back. You're terrifying because you didn't need to. You became the kind of quiet that burns. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't break, doesn't plead. The kind that watches kingdoms crumble and still doesn't blink. They thought you were soft-spoken. But softness is deceptive. It's what silk looks like before it strangles. And now, every time they remember your silence, they'll remember how loud their laughter used to be, and how much it cost them. The quiet one never forgets. The quiet one never forgives. The quiet one learns. So the next time they mock your silence, smile. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of answers, full of vengeance, full of waiting storms. And when the storm comes, you won't need to shout. You won't need to explain. Your silence will speak louder than every word they ever threw at you. They mistook your calm for surrender, your patience for fear, your silence for weakness. But they forgot one thing. The quiet ones are always the last to fall, and the first to rise. Because the ones who speak don't scare the world. The ones who don't have to, do. They called you soft because you didn't strike first. They said you were too forgiving, too calm, too blind to the knives behind the smiles. But you are never blind. You are watching every move, every lie, every handshake that came with poison behind the wrist. You are surrounded by actors wearing sincerity like a costume. And you, the quiet one, played your role, the observer. You let them think they were fooling you. You let them play their game. Because you wanted to see how far they would go. You didn't lose faith. You tested it. You didn't trust them. You studied them. Every fake apology, every whisper that turned your name into a rumor. You heard it all. You recorded it all. And somewhere deep inside, you smiled. Because betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals who was never real. And nothing teaches faster than pain. You see, betrayal is a sculptor. It carves away everything soft in you until only stone remains. It burns out the parts that believed too easily. It leaves you colder, sharper, more dangerous than before. They thought your silence meant blindness. But silence has eyes everywhere. You saw their patterns. You saw who clapped for you in public and who cursed your name in private. You saw who pretended to stand with you while building walls behind your back. They forgot that stillness doesn't mean weakness. It means surveillance. And the quiet one knows too much. Every lie became a lesson. Every wound, a record. Every betrayal, a seed of precision. You learned how they move. How they disguise envy as advice, how they poison truth with half smiles. And when the mask finally fell, it didn't surprise you. You had already built the evidence in your mind, brick by brick. You already saw the ending before the act began. That's the curse of awareness. You see people's intent before they show it. You recognize energy before words. You read tone before confession. It's not a gift, it's a scar shaped like intuition, and it came from betrayal. You learned that not every handshake means peace, not every smile means loyalty, not every I got you means protection. Some are just rehearsed lines from people terrified of being exposed. They call it backstabbing, but it's never from the back, is it? It's from beside you, from those close enough to hug you, close enough to study your weaknesses, close enough to know exactly where to aim. You don't hate them anymore. Hate takes energy. You don't even want revenge. That would mean they still matter. You've evolved past rage into silence again. But this silence isn't the same. It's not naive. It's nuclear. Because now you know how betrayal works. It doesn't come with warning signs. It comes dressed in trust. It comes speaking softly. It comes saying, "Don't worry, I'm with you," until you're bleeding, and the one holding the knife is asking if you're okay. You want to know the truth? Betrayal doesn't change the world around you. It changes you. It rewires the way you move, the way you look at people, the way you listen when they talk. You stop believing words. You start reading patterns. You start hearing what they don't say, and that's when the power begins. They thought betrayal would break you. Instead, it made you precise. You became the kind of calm that scares the world, the kind that no longer reacts, only calculates. Now when someone lies, you don't flinch. When they disappear, you don't chase. You've seen the script too many times, and you're tired of reruns. You've become what betrayal fears most. Someone who remembers. Someone who moves in silence but never forgets. You stopped expecting loyalty from the ungrateful. You stopped seeking honesty from the two-faced, because you realized something sacred. Not everyone deserves the truth. Not everyone deserves access to your fire. Some people only exist to test how much you can burn and still stand tall. You know who understood this too? Caesar, when Brutus smiled. Judas, when the kiss came. Kings, when the crown got heavy. They all learned the same law, that betrayal isn't personal. It's part of evolution. And you evolved. You rose from it. You shed trust like old skin. You kept your empathy, but buried it deep, safe from the reach of the unworthy. Because now you see the world differently. You see through masks, through motives, through smiles that stretch too wide. You can spot a hidden dagger in a heartbeat, and that's why you're dangerous now. You're not bitter. You're balanced. You're not cold. You're calculated. And that's what scares them. Because the quiet one they used to manipulate isn't quiet anymore. He's awakened, and he knows the anatomy of betrayal better than anyone alive. So when they come again with their fake warmth, their empty promises, their plastic loyalty, you'll smile. Not out of kindness, out of understanding, because you've seen this performance before. And this time, you're not the audience. You're the director. There comes a point where pain stops hurting and starts shaping, where the wound no longer bleeds, it carves. That's where you are now, standing at the edge of the person you used to be and the weapon you're about to become. The quiet doesn't stay quiet forever. It learns, it adapts, it sharpens, and then one day, it cuts. They thought the silence broke you, but silence doesn't break. It builds pressure until it explodes with surgical precision. You've felt that shift inside, haven't you? That coldness in your chest that feels less like pain and more like design. That moment when you stop asking why it happened and start preparing what comes next. That's not anger anymore. That's evolution. They said you changed. They were right. You changed the rules. You changed the energy. You stopped playing defense. And you became the storm they couldn't predict. Every betrayal forged you into a blade. And now, your silence, your calm, your control are just the gleam of that blade in the dark. You no longer chase revenge in noise. You deliver it in precision. You learned how to move without warning, how to let the world underestimate you, and use that as armor. Because the greatest victories are never announced. They arrive quietly, like a knife sliding between ribs. That's what you've become. Silent, strategic, surgical. You used to explain yourself. Now you just disappear and let absence do the talking. You used to seek closure. Now you close doors without ceremony. You used to react. Now you calculate. You became the thing they mocked you for not being. Ruthless, but not reckless. Ruthless with control. Fire with focus. Rage with direction. That's the beauty of transformation. When silence turns to precision and pain turns to power. They'll never see it coming because they're still looking for the old you. You don't even wear the same energy anymore. You walk differently. You breathe differently. You speak with weight. Every word is a decision. Every glance is a warning. Every silence is a threat. They can feel it too. That shift in the air when you enter the room. That chill that says, the one you betrayed doesn't bleed anymore. You see, forgiveness was never your weakness. It was your camouflage. You let them think they escaped the consequences. But consequences have patience. They don't rush. They arrive on time, like storms. That's what you are now. Not thunder, not lightning. The storm itself. Cold, unrelenting, and inevitable. Every scar on you became code. Every sleepless night, a lesson in precision. You became an architect of your own vengeance, not petty revenge. Balance, not chaos. Correction. You stopped playing fair in a world that plays filthy. Because fairness doesn't build empires. Strategy does. They built their comfort on your silence. They built their pride on your restraint. Now, you'll build your legacy on their disbelief. You'll rise while they still whisper your name like a curse. And that will be enough. They'll say, you've changed. And you'll smile. Because you know you had to. You had to bury the version of yourself that kept forgiving poison. You had to silence the heart that kept loving enemies. You had to become the thing that fear respects. Transformation isn't pretty. It's not poetic. It's blood ash and rebirth. It's the fire you swallow so no one else burns you again. And when that fire settles in your bones, you don't crave revenge anymore. You crave dominion. Not over them, over yourself. Because real revenge isn't payback. It's mastery. You mastered your emotions, your reactions, your rage. You learned how to weaponize silence, how to make calm look terrifying, how to make kindness feel like a threat. You became the blade that learned when not to cut. And that's what they'll never understand. Because they mistake control for mercy. They think your stillness means the fire died. But they've never seen what happens when the blade turns. When precision replaces pity. When the same silence they mocked becomes divine judgment. You don't need to swing wildly anymore. You've learned the art of patience. You strike only once. And when you do, the world splits clean. That's how legends are born. Not from noise, but from timing. Not from rage, but from focus. Not from chaos, but from command. And now, you command the storm. You walk with the calm of a king who doesn't need to shout. You move with the confidence of someone who has nothing left to lose. You look into the eyes of those who wronged you, and they flinch because they can feel it. The blade has turned. This isn't the end of your story. It's the rebirth of your design. You're no longer the one who bleeds for others. You're the one who makes the world bleed lessons. Let them call you cold. Let them call you cruel, because they'll never call you weak again. You've crossed the line between victim and force, between broken and reborn, between silence and execution. And now, when the world looks at you, it won't see the quiet one anymore. It will see the storm that learned to think, the silence that learned to cut. The blade turned. You walk back into the same world that once laughed at your silence, and everything changes. The same rooms, the same faces, the same voices that once mocked you, now tremble when they say your name, because the silence they ignored now carries weight. The kind of weight that bends air. The kind that makes people lower their gaze without being told. You don't have to demand respect anymore. Your existence commands it. They used to laugh when you spoke softly. Now they flinch when you don't speak at all, because your silence has turned into something else. Gravity. Every breath you take feels like pressure pressing against their lies. Every step you take feels like a reckoning, walking in slow motion. You didn't come back for revenge. You came back different, sharper, colder, controlled. You walk with the calm of someone who's been through hell and took notes. You don't rush. You don't react. You simply arrive. And that's enough. Because when the quiet returns, it doesn't come to talk. It comes to collect. They look at you differently now. Their tone shifts. Their smiles fade too quickly. They start explaining things you never asked, because they can feel it. You've seen too much, learned too much, changed too much. The silence they thought was weakness has become your crown. And it glows brighter than their fake confidence ever could. You can see the guilt in their eyes, the way they replay every word they ever said to you, the mockery, the betrayal, the laughter. Now it's a ghost haunting their throats. They can't even look you in the eye, because your silence mirrors their sins back to them. You don't need to say, "I told you so." You just stand there, and they remember everything. There's something divine about that, isn't there? The way power doesn't have to announce itself anymore. It just exists, unapologetic, untouchable, unbothered. They whisper behind you still, but it's not the same laughter. It's fear pretending to be conversation. It's guilt pretending to be gossip. Because deep down, they know they're in the presence of the one they tried to bury and failed. You became the consequence they thought would never arrive. You became the echo that answers their arrogance. You became the silence that makes cowards stutter. They wanted you gone, and instead, they got you reborn, stronger, louder without sound. They don't understand it, how someone can speak so little and still dominate every space. But that's what happens when your silence turns sacred, when your peace becomes a weapon, when your scars start shining like armor. Now they call you unpredictable, but the truth is, you've never been more stable. They just can't calculate calm anymore, because calm used to mean surrender. Now it means danger, and danger wears your face like prophecy. You stand in the same chaos that once consumed you, and it bows this time. The noise that drowned you out now obeys your rhythm. You walk through the ruins they left behind, and every step sounds like judgment. They wonder what changed you. They call it ego. They call it attitude. But it's none of that. It's evolution. It's what happens when pain graduates into power. You don't even hate them anymore. You've outgrown hate. It's too small for what you've become. You've replaced hate with focus, anger with precision, and revenge with peace so heavy it suffocates pretenders. Because nothing breaks people faster than realizing you no longer care. Nothing crushes them deeper than realizing you no longer need them. You're not chasing closure anymore. You are closure. Your silence is the period at the end of their story. And every time they try to rewrite it, it reads the same. You lost access to something rare. You know what's beautiful about this part of the transformation? You don't have to prove your strength. It proves itself. Every exhale, every stare, every unspoken truth that hangs between you and the ones who betrayed you. They used to control the room. Now they can't breathe in it. Because you became the atmosphere. You became the pressure they can't survive. And here's the cruel poetry of it all. Your silence doesn't destroy them. It reveals them. It shows them who they are when they can't manipulate you anymore. It strips their ego naked and forces them to face the reflection they've been avoiding. They'll try to pretend they're not intimidated. They'll try to act normal, but their hands give them away. Their voices crack, their eyes dart, because deep down they know they're standing before the one they betrayed, and he's not here to talk. You're not loud, you're lethal, you're not angry, you're absolute. You've crossed the point of human emotion. Now you move with something darker. Purpose. You've learned that real revenge isn't destruction, it's elevation. It's becoming so untouchable that their existence feels small in comparison. They called you a ghost before. Now you are one. Not the haunting kind, but the kind that walks through fire without a burn. The kind that reminds them that some souls don't die. They transform, and once transformed, they can't be killed again. You don't roar anymore. You don't chase validation. You don't seek apologies. Because you finally understand what was taken from you made room for what was waiting to be born in you. You're not the quiet one anymore. You're the reckoning that silence created. And when you return, you don't need armies or applause. You are both. Let them whisper. Let them pretend. Because deep down, they all feel it. The pulse in the air when you walk in. The truth they can't name, but can't escape. The quiet one returned. Not to prove, not to plead, but to reign. And when eyes lower, it won't be out of guilt anymore. It will be out of recognition. They'll see what they created and realize it's something they'll never control again. Because now, you are the silence, you are the storm, and the world finally understands what happens when the quiet one comes back home. You built your throne from the ashes of mockery. You built your kingdom in the ruins they left behind. And now, every brick of it hums with the same silence they once mocked. But this time, it's not weakness. It's law. Your silence has become the sound of order, the pulse that keeps the world from daring to cross you again. You don't shout to be heard anymore. You simply exist, and the noise rearranges itself around your presence. That's power. When your voice no longer needs volume, when your calm becomes command, when fear becomes your language, and everyone understands it. They used to measure strength by noise. Now they measure it by your stillness, because silence in you isn't emptiness, it's judgment. It's control. It's the reminder that not everything powerful has to scream. You don't need to threaten anyone. Your existence is the threat. Your energy does what swords used to do. People feel it before you speak. They correct their tone when you look their way. They lower their voices when your name enters the room. That's what true dominance looks like. It's not chaos, it's control. Not rage, but precision. You no longer rule through noise, but through inevitability. Because what you've become can't be challenged. They used to mock the quiet one. Now they mimic him. They wear calm like armor, copy your tone, study your movements, trying to understand how silence turned into supremacy. But they'll never replicate it, because your silence isn't strategy anymore. It's identity. It's the final form of discipline. And discipline is the one thing pretenders can't fake. You've learned what kings, generals, and legends always knew. Fear is more loyal than love. Love fades when comfort breaks. Fear kneels even when it hates. And when it kneels to silence, it obeys forever. You didn't ask for that kind of power. You were forced into it, forged into it, through betrayal, through loss, through humiliation. And the irony, they gave you everything they wanted to take from you. They made you unshakable. You became a monument to what they failed to destroy. And now your silence, that once sounded like surrender, is the anthem of your reign. You've seen how fear travels. It moves quietly, like smoke through walls. No one speaks of it, but everyone breathes it. They feel it when they hesitate to cross you, when they double think before speaking your name, when they dream about confronting you but wake up sweating before they ever do. That's the empire you built. Not of land, not of gold, but of reverence. An empire where power doesn't shout. It whispers, and those whispers echo longer than screams. You don't punish, you remind. You don't chase, you watch. And somehow, that's worse, because nothing terrifies the guilty more than the eyes that never blink, the calm that never moves, the silence that never ends. You've mastered what they never understood. Fear doesn't live in noise. It lives in anticipation, in waiting, in the space between your stillness and their collapse. They'll tell stories about you now, about the one who never shouted, the one who never begged, the one who turned humiliation into history. You're no longer a person to them. You're a consequence. They'll say your name quietly, like a superstition, like something that might appear if spoken too loud, because your silence has transcended fear. It's become mythology. This is the point where power stops being visible. It becomes felt. It hums in the air, invisible, but undeniable. Every time someone mentions you, someone else lowers their tone, because they all remember. The last one who underestimated you never returned the same. And that's the difference now. You don't fight for dominance. Your dominance. You don't chase control. You embody it. Your silence has turned into a system, a world order where chaos kneels and arrogance obeys. You've become the blueprint for survival, the warning carved in stone for anyone who thinks calm means harmless. You've become the shadow on the throne, the reminder that peace isn't fragile. It's lethal. They called you emotionless once, but you're not without feeling. You just mastered what feelings destroy in others. You turned heartbreak into strategy, pain into armor, and fear. You turned it into your ally, because fear, when understood, is power. It's what keeps empires alive. It's what keeps traitors awake at night. It's what makes loyalty pure. You don't even have to touch them anymore. The memory of you does the work. Your absence feels like judgment. Your silence feels like consequence. They used to see you as fragile glass. Now they see you as the mirror, and they hate what they see reflected back. You rule now, not through brutality, but through balance, through energy, through presence. The world listens not because you demand it, but because it fears what happens when it doesn't. They call it the Empire of Fear. But it's not fear of death. It's fear of realization. Fear of seeing you again and remembering how wrong they were. Fear of the quiet one who came back with thunder in his veins. And in this empire, you don't need followers. You don't need believers. You only need truth. And truth in your hands is absolute. Your silence has become the iron crown. Your restraint, the golden rule. Your presence, the final judgment. And when history writes your name, it won't say you were merciful. It won't say you were kind. It will say you were inevitable. Because fear can't destroy you anymore. It serves you now. It guards your throne. It speaks your legend. You were once the quiet one they mocked. Now you are the law they obey. And when they hear that silence again, they'll remember. It's not weakness. It's the sound of a kingdom breathing under your command. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to vanish and then return as legend. Because some stories aren't told in sunlight. They're whispered in dark halls between men who fear the silence that follows your name. You don't live in their memories now. You haunt them. They once thought your quiet was absence. Now they know. It was prophecy. Every moment you disappeared, you were rewriting destiny in private ink. Every time you stayed still, you were rearranging the world's balance without moving an inch. Now your silence is eternal. It doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to history. The same ones who mocked you now build myths around you. They tell stories of the one who never raised his voice yet made the earth tremble. Of the one who lost everything and became everything. Of the one who turned pain into permanence. They don't say your name loudly. They say it carefully, as if speaking it too strong might wake something they're not ready to face. Because silence in its purest form never dies. It echoes, and that's what you've become. An echo carved into time. A ghost made of purpose. A lesson disguised as a legend. They thought you wanted revenge, but revenge is for the living. You reached beyond it. You reached immortality, because the world forgets the noise, but it never forgets the silence that follows it. You learned what empires never do. That legacy isn't written in gold, it's written in scars, and yours are carved deep, each one glowing faintly beneath the skin, like runes of survival. Each scar whispers, you can't kill what was reborn in fire. They'll try to explain you one day. They'll give you names, hero, villain, anomaly, but none will fit, because you don't belong to one story. You are the story, the quiet one who fell in silence and rose as shadow, the outcast who turned exile into empire, the scarred one who learned that pain is just another word for immortality. You see, the powerful leave behind monuments. But you left behind a presence. It lingers in rooms long after you've gone. It hums in the air like static before lightning. Even the brave hesitate when they feel it, because something inside them recognizes what you became. A force that doesn't die. A silence that doesn't fade. That's the secret of legacy. It's not made of applause. It's made of impact. It's what remains when the world forgets to look. It's what whispers to the next generation. Be careful who you betray, because silence remembers. And now, they remember. Not through monuments or songs, but through fear, through reverence, through awe. You became the mythology that no one admits they believe in, but everyone feels when they stand too long in the dark. Your story isn't about vengeance anymore. It's about ascension. You transcended the human hunger for validation. You've reached the rarest form of power, where you no longer need to be seen to be felt. Because power isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who shapes reality when they speak softly. And that's you. The architect of silence, the engineer of consequence, the god of composure. You built something greater than fear. You built remembrance. They won't build statues of you. They'll build systems based on what they learned from you. They'll quote your words without knowing they were yours. They'll mimic your patience, your precision, your restraint, without realizing they're walking the path you paved. That's what legacy looks like in the shadows. It doesn't beg to be seen. It demands to be felt. You've become the voice that speaks when others fall silent. The echo that guides those too broken to scream. And that's how legends live forever. Not in books, not in songs, but in the silence people keep when they think of them. Because silence is sacred now. It's not what you endure anymore. It's what you own. And one day, long after the world forgets your face, they'll still feel your presence when they face their own betrayals. When they break, they'll hear your voice in the dark saying, "Don't run. Let it shape you." When they fall, they'll feel your energy whisper, "Get up. You're not finished." When they're mocked for being quiet, they'll remember what you became and smile, because silence in your hands became freedom. It became fire that doesn't burn. It purifies. It became the mirror that shows truth to those who dare to look. You didn't just survive them. You outlasted them. And in time, they'll understand the real curse of betraying someone like you. You don't just disappear. You become everywhere. They'll hear you in storms, see you in calm waters, feel you in the moments before regret. Because your legacy doesn't rest in memory. It lives in consequence. That's the legacy of shadows. You never fade. You never beg. You never need to be remembered. Because you're already woven into the silence that holds the world together. And when the next generation stands where you once stood, betrayed, alone, underestimated, they'll feel something awaken inside them. Something ancient, something powerful. And they won't know your name, but they'll know your story. They'll stand taller, speak slower, move quieter, and someone will ask them why. And they'll answer, because silence doesn't mean weakness. It means I'm becoming. And just like that, your legacy continues.